So I appreciate you having me. I appreciate all of you folks coming. I don't know if any of you folks have been to Israel, but just to sort of set the stage, this is Jerusalem. This is actually the Mount of Olives here. This is the Garden of Gethsemane. It's traditionally right down here at Holy Church of the Skeptics where Jesus was crucified. And I'm sort of standing when I took the picture with King David Hotel behind me, looking at the Al-Aqsa Mount. That's the Temple Mount there. So just sort of an interesting picture. So I guess I'll have you go through it. We did go to Israel. We went as a delegation of the Republican National Committee in order to show Israeli government that there's a significant portion of the political establishment in the United States that supports them as a country and understands what happened on October 7th and to give witness to what happened and to come back and talk to folks about it. We stayed in Jerusalem at the King David Hotel. It was sort of an interesting thing to do. There's 8 floors. Only 2 are occupied. The German Chancellor was above us, and we were on 1 floor. And it turned out there's another group of men there who we talked to in the morning and breakfast. They were a bunch of Navy SEALs there for who knows what reason. And so we toured around the Gaza Strip, and I'll point out some of the places we went to when we get to those slides. We ended up going into Tel Aviv to the military headquarters of the IDF, the Israeli Defense Force, to look at a film that I don't have any slides from, nor would you want to see the slides from it. There's the film that was taken from surveillance cameras as the Hamas terrorists came into the country. They wore GoPro cameras and took pictures of what they were doing. They were worse than Nazis. You know, the Nazis actually tended the individual Gestapo members was sort of embarrassed about what they were doing. They understood that it was wrong. They didn't write home about it. There was a fantastic percentage of them were alcoholics. You know, they drank, they anesthetized themselves. These guys, they loved what they were doing. You know, when they'd kill a little girl, they would start screaming out Allahu Akbar, and then they'd show it on the GoPro camera. So it was just horrible what they did. So we went down there. We went to a hospital at Beersheba, which I'll show you, and then eventually we went up to northern Israel. We were up actually right near the Golan Heights and very close to some Hezbollah camps up there. So why don't you go to the while we were there, we met a number of different delegations in the morning and night, including members of the Knesset, which is the Israeli parliament, ministers. We met the head of the Mossad, which is the intelligence agency for the Israeli government, Shin Bet, actually who are around us. They're the protective service. The thought was that because who you are, Hamas might try to come in and attack us as well. So it was really kind of an interesting meeting. We got a pretty good insight on how they are defending themselves, and the shock this was to the Israeli system. They have a unity government now. Benjamin Netanyahu, who I've sort of followed over the years, I've thought quite a bit of him, he will lose his job eventually because he did something. The Israeli government does what apparently the American government doesn't do. It holds its politicians accountable. And so while it has a unity government now, he's not going to, once the terrorists are killed, the war in Gaza dials back, he will lose his position. But right now they are unified. And that's a meeting we had with 2 Americans, a couple who came over. Their son was at that concert that was near Gaza Strip. And they have pictures of him being put into a back of a pickup truck, the GoPro pictures. And the reason they got the GoPro pictures is because they would eventually, some of the terrorists were killed and they'd take them off the terrorists. And so they have pictures of him being put in. His arm was shot away, and they think he's still alive as a hostage. So they're there to try to make sure he's not forgotten and the other hostages aren't forgotten. See, yeah, so we can go on from there. The first city we went into was Seradot, which is right near the corner of Gaza Strip, going up towards Jerusalem. This man is a member of the Knesset. He was down the street from Rachel's house, just down there. The Israeli government wants to be like a European social democrat government. So even though its history was individual citizens defending themselves, they now have a law that says you're not supposed to have guns at home. Even when you're in a kibbutz, they understand, well, maybe they need, if you're right hard up against Gaza Strip, you might need some guns. But they would make them put them in a central place. And even after all this happened, I talked to the head of the Shin Bet and said, have you guys learned anything here? You know, that maybe people should be allowed to carry weapons, have them in the homes. And they said, no, you know, spouses will shoot each other. You know, they're crazy. This man, however, is a member of the Knesset. Because he had a weapon at home. And he was right down, so he heard some sirens going off, went outside and saw the pickup trucks full of terrorists coming in. He was the only one there who had a gun. He went out with his pistol to face automatic weapons, you know, long arms, and engaged them, killed probably about 20 or 30 of them. As he was killing them, he was handing out the weapons to his neighbors. Eventually, they had some of them holed up here. And actually, before they realized they were there was a woman by the name of Rachel. Rachel was like 80 years old, and she was chastising them, saying, you guys aren't acting the way, you know, you should. And they sitting them down and giving them tea and telling them about a better life and everything. And so eventually, after about 6 or 7 hours, this fellow, and the IDF still hadn't arrived, they stormed the building. And this woman lived across the street, and she told them how to get onto the roof, and because she'd lived there all her life, and how to get into the building. And they killed every one of that's all the bullets, the shots that were in the interior of the house, and they ended up killing all the terrorists and saved Rachel. This is the entrance to Seradot. They came here and set up a roadblock, and any car that came along, they shot whoever was in the car. We're meeting with the mayor of Seradot there, and so this person is a retired general who lives in the town. A lot of them were like him for the first few hours. They were just individuals who came out with guns that they had to oppose the terrorists. The IDF, again, took them about 5 or 6 hours to really mobilize and get to the border region. Next one. We went down towards where the concert was, which you'll see a picture of. It's really close to the strip itself, and still at that point they hadn't invaded that portion of the strip. You know, so we had to wear bulletproof vests and went in military vehicles. This is an Israeli IDF colonel who's describing to us what we're going to see. This is a minister. I think he was the minister of immigration. Interesting. He talked about what we're going to see and about how it affected the country. That's those are posters of all the people who are missing, all the hostages. Next slide. When the minister got to near Oz, which is the kibbutz I'll show you, the people who were remaining there, 1 out of 4 people were killed there, were so angry at them they had to leave. You know, they view this as a major failure of the government. So we're gathering there. That's the site of the police station at Seradot. Seradot's a relatively good sized little city, maybe about 6,000 or 8,000 people. They came in, they took over the police station, they killed, I think, 28 of the police officers who were there. Another 15 were on the roof where they held up. Eventually, the IDF sent a helicopter over and took the police off the roof, and then they dropped the building and killed about 25 of the terrorists who were still in the building. So that's a picture of where the building is. And these are 2 RNC members. Lenora Levy is one who organized the trip, and she's the Republican National Committee woman for for Connecticut. If you have any questions, as I'm going along here, go ahead. I don't know if you fellows, you folks rather, saw something that was portrayed the first 2 or 3 days after the event, but they found this terrorist at a GoPro camera of himself attacking this bus stop. All the bus stops in Israel function as bomb shelters because the rockets are constantly being coming over, so you can always run to a bus stop. He ran in there. This fellow came from the festival, the music festival. That's the Gaza Strip right here. So he ran over and he was trying to hide in there. And the terrorists kept on throwing grenades in. And 7 times he threw it back, killing some of the terrorists. You know, there'd be a grenade thrown in, he'd throw it back. And eventually what happened was the 8th one killed him. That's the inside of it. This is the young American fellow who was at the festival. And that again is his parents. That's still the minister there. He's still with us because we hadn't gone to the kibbutz yet. He had to leave at that point. He's still a hostage. Now just a young kid going to a music festival. Yeah, that's right. Not too far from this festival, right up against the Gaza Strip, is the kibbutz of Nir Oz. Nir Oz was considered to be one of the finest kibbutz in Israel. It was known for having a great botanical diversity, about 800 different species of plants. 500 or 600 people lived there. It was considered to be a vacation spot. As I said, the Hamas knew how the kibbutz would run. They knew that they had one location for all their weapons because the kibbutz would hire, people from the Gaza Strip to work the fields or to work the shops and so forth. And so they went right there, and as the men would run or for their arms, they would shoot them. And so there was about, I think around 160 were killed there. Another 80 or so were taken hostage. These are the mailboxes it's kind of communal living. These are the mailboxes for those who were killed. And the red are those who are hostages. This is the interior of their dining commons here. What they did to it. Next one.
So, is there any outcry from the civilians wanting to be armed now?
Yes.
Are they
Yes.
saying to
I
their
will show you,
government,
later on there's a picture I'll show you going to a refugee camp. And it was not kind of up along near the Mediterranean Ocean. They had called the government over a period of about 2 or 3 weeks before this happened. They said there's something going on. These young men are rushing the fence, and then they're withdrawing, and they're burning tires along the fence to hide what they're doing. Something's going on. And the government said, oh, no, they're like the American government, great in electronic intelligence. They forgot to listen to what's happening on the ground to figure out what people are doing because the Hamas stayed off the air. And so they decided, you want to know what? We're going to take our arms home. So when I went into the refugee camp, I was talking to them. I said, how many folks did you lose in your kibbutz? They said, none. And so what happened? Well, we turned the tables on them. We had all our arms at home. When they drove the pickup trucks and they invaded our kibbutz, we killed every one of them.
Good for them.
And so we can go to the next one. This again is a kibbutz Nir Oz. That's their dining common. That's posters of kids who used to eat there. They're now hostages. Just posted all the people who died. Next one. This getting kibbutz Nir Oz. They knew the kibbutz well enough that they knew where the gas lines were. So when the residents would hole up in their houses, they would grab the gas lines out of the ground, push them in the houses, and light them up. Kind of gruesome. I apologize, but just to get the picture. In the Jewish religion, it's very important that you bury the entire body. So when they go into the houses, they'd have to sift the ashes to find the body. So that's where they were sifting the ashes. So kind of just more of the same, more of the destruction. At this house here, they had a GoPro camera of the people who did this as they were doing it, and the family ran out, and it was a woman who was a Holocaust survivor. She was pretty old in the 90s. Her grandchildren, who were young, they were in their 30s, and their little children. And so you could see on the camera that first they shot the little children in front of their parents. Then they shot the younger couple in front of the older person. And then they shot the Holocaust survivor. So, you know, it's just sort of this gratuitous, it was monstrous. You know, the hatred they have for the Jewish nation, the Jewish people is beyond any understanding. You can go to the next one. The largest hospital in southern Israel is at Beersheba. I think it's called, it's actually up here, Saradat, somewhere. We went there and they talked about how they responded that day. They actually had to send out, you know, because people were driving in in cars with fantastic injuries. They realized there's nothing between us and the terrorists. So they ended up having hospital employees went out with weapons, whatever they could find, to make sure the hospital wasn't itself invaded, because the intent of the Hamas, as they found out, was to go right straight across Israel, go into the West Bank. They didn't, but this man here, I can't remember his name. He's was a pediatric surgeon. He was the son of a minister, a cabinet minister. He was considered to be one of the most foremost experts on pediatric surgery in Israel. He worked all day helping people on October 7th. He was mobilized on October 8th because in the Israeli army, there has to be a doctor for every 30 soldiers in the field. So he was mobilized and he was in the field. The last picture they have of him is this one here. And he's actually saying his prayers before he goes into battle. And we just sort of listened to the presentation there of what happened. You can go to the next one. Something that was a little bit more relaxing. Actually, if we can go back to the other one, I think that's where it happened. They had us meet a major in the IDF who had been badly injured. He wanted to meet us and talk about why they were doing it. While we were meeting him, a couple came in who were in the middle-aged, in the 40s, and they heard he was going to be there, and he was their son's commander, and their son had died. And so they came to ask him, what happened, how did he die? It turned out to be the same incident, that this fellow had lost the use of his legs. And so it's just sort of a really touching thing to see as all are trying to comfort each other. The couple who lost their child was trying to comfort this man, and he was trying to do the same. So, that's the next one. A little bit more easy to take than all of that is we were heading up to the northern Israel, and we went to a radio station that's right at the southern part of the Sea of Galilee. That's, if you know the area, that's where Capernaum is over there. Jesus rode across there. And it's the only, and they have a radio station there. It's the only Christian radio station in the Middle East. And the Israeli government invited them in and helped finance the station because, you know, they want there to be a voice for people who are in Israel who are Christian. They want them to be able to feel at home. And so we had lunch there and a presentation about what they were doing. So it's kind of a really interesting thing. It's also interesting. It kind of reminds me of there's this young women all over the place, and they have all kinds of AR-15s, and they're on the lines, and they're defending hospitals, and defending refugee camps. There's full participation. Next slide. That's up along the northern Israeli border. That's a Hezbollah camp over there. Another one there. We're looking with this building here behind us out across the valley. The closest one was only about a kilometer away. This is an Aramaic Maronite church. It's one of the oldest Christian the sect is one of the oldest Christian sects. They still say their services in the language of Jesus, Aramaic. They, about 6 or 7 years ago, they came to the Israeli government saying, we're being killed. You know, our neighborhoods are being wiped out, we're being assassinated, can we come and live in your country? And they said, absolutely. And so not only did they come, the Israeli government set up a village for them, got jobs for them, gave them the money to build their church.
Could you keep your voice up?
Pardon me?
Could you keep your voice up?
I will, thank you for telling me to do that. I tend to talk softly unless this is sort of emotional. But I'll do that, thank you. Next slide. One of the things we did one morning is we went over to a place in Tel Aviv where civilians have gathered, and they make, I think at that point they were making 30,000 sandwiches a day for the Israeli army. And so they would make them during the morning, and they'd all get in cars and drive them to the wherever they were located. So we worked there one morning helping them make sandwiches. It's at a community center. These are the men that worked in the community center that have since been killed. So next one. Let's see. Yeah, and that's that refugee camp. Very, very interesting here is this is a young American woman who had immigrated to Israel about 10 years before. She lived at the kibbutz. She's the one that told me how they had their arms with them. And she had lived in Connecticut and knew Lenora, who hadn't seen her in 10 years. We were just going to a refugee camp, and there was a friend of hers there. One of the things we did, and this is the presentation, is we took up a collection among the members of the Republican National Committee. There's actually 168 among the 168 of us. We all kicked in money to buy gift cards for the people staying at that refugee camp. We didn't know what they needed, but we know they had needs, and so we made sure they were distributed throughout. And it's actually at the what's the name of that museum? Shiva? Yeah. Yeah. Have you been there? They have this book that has the names of all the people who lost their lives in the Holocaust. So, next one. We're at actually another hospital there meeting with the staff. The last night we were there, which was the last night that the ceasefire was in place, we didn't know it at the time. We had dinner with a military unit in the Negev, in the mess hall. And it was really, really kind of thought-provoking because 5 or 6 hours later, we're in a plane leaving, and the ceasefire ends. And so a lot of these young men who are there, and they do love their country. They understand why they're fighting. Some of them have lost their lives. And spontaneously, as we're eating, they began to sing a song that is sort of a childhood song they all learned. And the refrain to it, it's in Hebrew, so I couldn't begin to repeat it. But the refrain for it is Israel, the people of Israel live. And is that what it is?
Yeah.
Yeah. I gather everybody learns it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was they were the young fellows or people were so enthused singing it. Next slide. And that's again more at the last night when we ate with that group. The commander is this person here, and the interesting thing about him is he's a colonel in the IDF. He's a Muslim. He's a Druze, and he would live in no other country in the world than Israel. Next slide. Just leaving in the airport. This is a young fellow that I've shown a couple of times, a young American fellow. This fellow here, who's I think they've since learned he was killed. Was just an exchange student from Tanzania who happened to be at one of the kibbutz, and he was killed. And obviously some of the young kids, I think that particularly young one was like 8 months old, 9 months old when it happened, so he's over a year old now, still a hostage. So, next one. There it is. So, you know, I've always thought that the United States gets involved in useless wars. You know, we've been too aggressive internationally. We take on problems that aren't ours. Maybe Ukraine is one of those. Certainly a number of conflicts can be criticized on that basis. What is clear to me, however, is that the Israeli young people, the IDF, are fighting our battle right now because they know they're not fighting just Hamas. They know they're not fighting just Hezbollah. They're fighting Iran. They're fighting Islamic Jihad. The movement, the ideology that has, since it came into existence, been what was the term, ascendant. It wants to take over the whole world. It won't be satisfied with Israel. It won't be satisfied with Europe. It will come to us at some point. And so they're fighting our battle there, and we should hope that they win. Certainly by courage, they will. And apparently the battle goes well for them, although it's slow. So, any questions?
Bill, just a couple of quick ones. You said the Hezbollah camps are in the Golan Heights, or they're beyond?
Just at the edge of it.
Okay,
Just
because
at the edge
Israel
of it.
didn't give back the Golan.
No, they
Okay.
didn't. No, they didn't. They're on the edge of the Golan Heights. Israel, my sense is, having talked to some of the Israeli military people and intelligence people, although they didn't say as much, they're going to invade Lebanon. By UN mandate, the Hezbollah is supposed to be behind, I think the name of it is the Litani River, which is 30 kilometers north. That was the resolution of the last Lebanon-Israeli war. They'll stay up there. They're right up hard against the border. They're shooting off rockets and everything.
Also, what was the name of the kibbutz where they did bring home their guns and nobody died?
I'll get you the name of it. I can't remember. I can't remember. The other one was near Oz. It had such an unusual name, but it's right at the corner of the Mediterranean Ocean and the northern Gaza.
Because that is an interesting thing for people to know about.
Yeah, I know. We over years, we've talked sort of theoretically about Second Amendment rights, and I think as time has gone on, as you're pointing out, we realize it's not so we can find it's to control it, protect ourselves from danger,
Yeah.
and they should begin to realize that that was a perfect example of when it was
The
needed.
whole gun thing changed since we were there. How many years ago?
Yeah, 30 years.
30 years ago. Man, everybody's walking around.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
We lived there for 3 years.
But nowadays, when we would leave the hotel every day, we'd go through an intersection, whether we're going north or south, or going further into Tel Aviv, and at that intersection, a couple of older Hamas guys, decided they're going to join the fun, drove up there to shoot up the bus stop, and they didn't count on the fact that not only is every Israeli armed now, but there's army, young kids who are in the army all over the place. They fired off one bullet and they got killed. So.
Well, thank you.
Thank you
Okay.
very much,
Thank you.
Bill.
Yeah, thank you.